Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Nick.
I'm Mike.
From Top Notch Sports. Today we're going to be going over the Dallas Cowboys off-season salary review, where we discuss the Dallas Cowboys' current cap situation under Jerry Jones and Mike McCarthy. Again, this was a season that probably a lot of Dallas fans want to forget. They weren't as good as they were probably wanting to be. Dak Prescott's injury, of course, did not help. But again, at the end of the day, Andy Dalton came in at the relief. Probably one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. And they won games, but they didn't win as many as they probably should have. And Mike McCarthy now, I mean, for a while, he was on the hot seat. Let's be honest. He was on the hot seat for a while. I don't think he honestly deserved it. That's just my opinion. But that's not what we're here for today. Today, we're going over the salary cap of the Dallas Cowboys. So I'll have Mike hop right into it on the next slide. Go ahead, Mike. Explain this slide to him.
All right, so this right here, now don't freak out real fast, Cowboys fans. This right here is who is currently under contract. So if you don't see Dak Prescott there, this is because he's not currently under contract. Now, the green is what you're saving if you release them. So if you release Tyron Smith, you'd save $5.2 million. The red is a loss you'll take if you release him. So if you cut DeMarcus Lawrence, it would hit $19 million would be a hit towards your current cap space. And looking at this situation, you got $20 million in cap space, and you don't have a quarterback. So that's a problem. You got to figure out a way to either free up money with Dak Prescott or bite the bullet, go into the negatives, and franchise tag him again. But see, now that's another issue, because is Dak Prescott going to want to play under a franchise tag again? If I had to take a guess, I'd say probably not. So the Cowboys are going to need to go to work. Jerry Jones is going to need to sit down in his yacht and go to work with the numbers and figure out how to get more cap space, whether it be reconstructing or releasing people. But we don't think it's realistic they release Tyron Smith, their left tackle. We don't think it's realistic they release Anthony Brown because they're already thin at that position. So we think this right here is going to be pretty much what you see week one, plus potentially a Dak Prescott.
Absolutely. Mike's 100% right. So again, you look at this team. I mean, this team is really not too far off of where you got to be to win. I mean, Trevon Diggs came in. He played better than I absolutely anticipated. He played better than I was anticipating. You look at Leighton Vander Esch. He's a pretty good middle linebacker with Jalen Smith to the other side of him. He's pretty good. I'm absolutely in love with this kid. I always liked him coming out of college, Neville Gallimore. I think he's an absolute monster on your defensive line. I feel like you got a really young core on defense. You got Smith. You got Vander Esch. You got Neville Gallimore. You got Trevon Diggs. And DeMarcus Lawrence is still always a stuff for you guys. On the offensive line, I like Tyler Biadasz. I think he was one of the better interior offensive linemen in the draft. You got Connor Williams at left guard, Tyron Smith. You don't want to do what Mike just mentioned before, but I agree with him. Cut everybody to free up some cap for Dak. Therefore, you got two solutions. You either going to have to, I mean, you guys can yell at us all you want, but in the honest and all reality, you're either going to have to do one of two things. You move on from Dak Prescott, or you franchise tag him. Now the question, like Mike said, is, will he want to play under a franchise tag? Well, we're not going to predict that today. We're just going to say what we think is the logical sense, the most realistic expectation for the Dallas Cowboys. The other thing we're not going to predict here is restructuring contracts. They can free up some money by doing that as well. But again, with the money situation that we have, we're going to go on the next slide and show you the notable losses, who's currently not under contract for the Dallas Cowboys. So I might do that right now. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, so here's our notable losses. First, I'd like to thank our numbers guy, Noah the Tree Branch Thompson. This guy always comes through with these numbers. He finds out the percentage, the snaps played, the expected contract. He is great. We couldn't do it without him. Now, let's start off with Dak. Now, this is a contract. This isn't a franchise tag. So if they're going to sign Dak, he's expected to get a 4-year, $147 million deal. This past season, we all know he got injured. He only played 31.4% of the snaps. But who knows? Dak might even ask for more money. We know there wasn't a solid agreement between him and Jerry Jones last season, and then they went on to pay guys like Amari Cooper a ton of money. That probably hit Dak the wrong way. He probably didn't like that, so we don't know what he's going to ask for. Then we got Tyrone Crawford, defensive tackle. He expected a 2-year, $10 million deal. He played 40.1% of the snaps. He won't be coming back. Then we got backup quarterback Andy Dalton. He's expected a 1-year, $6.8 million deal. He played in relief of Dak this year, 54.1% of the snaps. He won't be back. Then we got center Joe Looney. He's expected a 1-year, $1.8 million deal. He plays 66.6% of the snaps. And we got Aldon Smith. I actually think Aldon Smith had a pretty good year this year. He is expected a 1-year, $2 million deal. He played 73.1% of the snaps, but the problem is they cannot. Well, right now they could, but that's assuming they don't bring Dak back. Right now they could pay him, but we find it very unlikely. And then we've got Chidobe Awuzie, cornerback. He's expected a 4-year, $34 million deal. He only played 40.9% of the defensive snaps. Then we got cornerback Jordan Lewis. He's expected a 2-year, $2 million deal. He played 73.8% of the snaps. And then finally, Xavier Woods, safety. He's expected a 2-year, $5 million deal. He played 89.5% of the snaps. So it sucks to lose a guy that played almost all of your defensive snaps, and that is this current situation with Xavier Woods here.
Absolutely. Again, you look at this, usually we want to bring back the guys that play a high percentage of the snaps, keep continuity, keep chemistry, keep familiar faces around the locker room. And again, actually, Mike just brought up a good point to me. They really could. I mean, it is possible too. We're not going to do it, but if they wanted to be in really some bad cap trouble, they could honestly go in and sign some of these players and then still franchise tag Dak Prescott. Yeah. I don't think that they're going to go in that much debt. I don't know if Jerry Jones is going to want to go and bring in someone like Alden Smith and these guys and go into even more negative debt after bringing back Dak. We're telling you right now on the next slide, you're going to see us bringing back Dak. So let's go on the next slide. We're going to break down this offseason.
One thing. They could also, this is not for this, like really for this video, but this is another option. They can make their signings and they got the 10th pick. They could draft a quarterback at 10 and let Dak walk. That also could be an option. But I don't think it's a smart move because I think Dak could be a phenomenal quarterback. But that's another option that you could think about.
Definitely. Me and Mike were both saying it last year in the offseason that they should have brought back Dak on he deserved to be paid, and we know how that ended up. So let's go on the next slide. I'm going to break it down real fast, and here we go. So potential targets. Again, this year you got $20.1 million. We're estimating no cuts. You're not going to cut nobody, and your estimated signings is going to be Dak Prescott. You're a franchise tag him for a 1-year, $39.7 million, which ends up being a $39.7 million total cost. Which means if that's the only move you do, because we don't want to get you in really bad debt trouble, you'd be negative $19.6 million in debt. I think that's what you guys are going to do. Could you bring back a few of these names? Yes. Is it worth going $25, $30, $40 million in debt to do it? No, it's not. You could spend about $20 million in free agency this year. I would say about 17 and then franchise tag Dak. But I don't think Dak really wants to even be franchise tagged, but we're doing it just because we think this is realistic. You got to bring him back somehow, some way, and we feel like we cannot finish this Cowboys video without putting Dak Prescott back on the Cowboys. So let's look at team needs real fast. Here are your team needs. You're going to franchise tag Dak Prescott. You're going to draft Caleb Farley in the first round, cornerback from Virginia Tech. I like this kid. Got to watch more film on him, which we'll do in about a month. We'll do our scouting analysis. I can't wait for that. Defensive tackle is another position you guys should probably draft. Outside linebacker, you got to draft. Free safety, you got to draft. And strong safety, you got to draft. You guys got to nail the draft. First round pick, we're saying Caleb Farley. You lock down the corners with him and Trevon Diggs. I think that's a really good option for you guys. You guys bring back your franchise tag Dak Prescott. You bring him back any way you can. Maybe you don't franchise tag him and you find money that Jerry Jones pulls out of his ass somehow. Hey, it's a possibility. You bring in Dak Prescott, you don't franchise tag him. They're going to cost you probably a little bit more, but know what? You finally get your franchise quarterback back on a long-term deal, and you don't got to worry about that for years to come. Let's go on to the next slide where Mike will break down the 21-21 expected lineup. Go ahead, Mike.
So this is the expected lineup for 2021. We're seeing Dak Prescott back at quarterback on a franchise tag, and we're seeing the blue is a rookie, a player that they got via the draft. We see Caleb Farley, cornerback from Virginia Tech, and then the yellow are placeholders. Reggie Robinson isn't even listed as a safety. He's listed as a cornerback, but the Cowboys, they don't have anybody else on the roster that can even play safety, so they're in trouble there. We got defensive tackle Tristan Hill. He'd be a placeholder because he didn't really play last year. And we got Dorrance Armstrong. That's been Sean Lee's spot forever. And then expecting they don't bring him back in. We got Dorrance Armstrong there. See, Nick, so I was thinking like what you were saying. They could sign the guys back and then franchise tag Dak and go like in the negatives even more. But I don't think I think the only reason you do that is if you think you're in Super Bowl contention. I don't think any of those guys that they are losing this year is going to help this team win a Super Bowl.
I don't think so either. I mean, you saw New Orleans Saints do it for years, and now that's why they're a negative $100 million in cap space.
Exactly.
And they were chasing a Super Bowl for years. Sean Payton won that Super Bowl with Drew Brees. Unfortunately, never happened, and now they're in a terrible situation. They over negative $100 million in cap. You don't want to do this with this young team. You had a few pieces. I mean, the only guy on this list that I say is a must bring back is Dak Prescott. This guy is a leader of your team. You're going to want him back. Another few mentionable names. I mean, Alden Smith stayed clean this year. He looked very good. Jadobi Awuzie, I think he's a solid corner for you guys. And then you got Xavier Woods. I think he's pretty good too. But again, in me and Mike mock free agency, mock offseason, we do not expect you guys to do anything like that. So that's all. And again, you're going to draft a free safety, a defensive tackle, an outside linebacker, a strong safety, immediately plug it in for maybe Tristan Hill, Dorrance Armstrong, and Reggie Robinson. Mike, I think that's all. How about all from you two?
Yeah, that's all for me. In the NFC East is going to get interesting. I think the Eagles right now are probably in the worst shape. This Cowboys team will compete. The offense is the best offense in the division with Dak Prescott under center. Their problem is their defense.
Absolutely.
So,
I agree. And I think it's a young defense. I mean, if you're bringing Caleb Farley, which we predict, you got Neville Gallimore, you got Trevon Diggs. I'm liking their future. I truly am. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But again, no, I think that this team absolutely can win a division. I think that they can win. The NFC East, Mike, is definitely up in the air. That's all from us from Top Notch Sports. Again, we'll see you guys soon. In about a month or so, we're going to be starting our draft analysis, our free agency talks. We're going to go more into detail on each 32 teams. So Dallas Cowboys fans, you're going to want to stay tuned for that. And that's about all of us from here on Top Notch Sports. I'm Nick.
I'm Mike.
From Top Notch Sports. We'll see you guys soon. We are.
Hope better.
See you guys soon. Peace.